Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of All Politics Are Local. I'm WSAV Now reporter John Dowding. Every week, we take the time to break down some of those big headlines coming out of Washington to see how it impacts us right here in the coastal empire and low country. As always, we're being joined by WSAV Washington correspondent Kelly Meyer. Hey, Kelly, happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Same to you, John. Thank you for having me. I know we say this every week, but another historic week ahead. So I'm excited to be with you.
Yeah, I'm just happy that we are not going to have to be the kids 20 years from now who have to open up their history books to 2020 and 2021, because that's going to
Oh
just
my,
be a whole year's worth of learning. But like you said, another historic week coming up. We're going to have the inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris this week. We're going to have just more discussions about not inauguration, other I word, impeachment this week. And also today, really quick tidbit we want to mention. Obviously, today is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. There's a number of different observations going around across the country where people are getting together to provide for their communities. Here in Savannah, we have some different free gas giveaways and other charitable things going on. But one thing that, and Kelly and I were talking about this before we came on, was the Martin Luther King Memorial in D.C. Kelly, there's a little weird things going on that's not usually what you would see going on this time of year there. So what's going on? What are you seeing?
yeah, we were talking a little bit before we came on here that, normally you would see people going by and leaving flowers or just going by to visit on a day like today. And I honestly think that there isn't really a way for people to get close to that this year because of the inauguration proceedings set to happen. And especially following the attack we had on January 6th, security has been so tight. It has started to increase in the past week. Normally we only see it like a day or two before inauguration day, but it's been starting to ramp up a week out. And then, as I said, every day leading up to it, as we talked about, it's getting more and more intense. Just this morning, you see the barricade. It kind of pushes back more and more every day that you can't get past certain places, especially the National Mall. That's going to be closed. That whole area that you go visit when you come to DC, that iconic spot. And we knew that it was going to be different this year because of the pandemic, and they wanted people to stay home. But now with the security, it's a whole nother level, just making it so much more difficult for anybody. People that live here, that's a big complaint. For people who have to live and work in those areas, it's shut down. It's a military zone.
I've been seeing some of those maps from some of the different local news outlets there that are showing the lockdowns in that area and the street closures. And it, like you said, it's massive. I mean, I lived in DC for a summer. I'm very familiar with that whole area around the Capitol, all around Foggy Bottom from the White House, all the way down the mall. And it just to see all of that locked down, I was like, how would you get around? So I'm definitely not envious of you right now, Kelly, but
Yeah.
it's something again, just kind of tying into basically it's the tale of the times right now of what's going on with the inauguration. And obviously, like you said, after the threats we saw, after the attacks we saw, I should say, on January 6th, continued talk of threats, continued investigations, all of that kind of stuff. They're just doing whatever they can to lock down the Capitol ahead of this historic inauguration. As you know, especially after a very contentious election cycle. Obviously, the sitting president, President Trump, is not going to attend inauguration. He's leaving the morning of inauguration. A lot of tensions are still high around this election cycle. So, Kelly, let me ask you, what are you hearing from some of our representatives on the Hill about how safe they're feeling, how their thoughts around the inauguration, how safe they're feeling working, how safe they're feeling going into the inauguration? Before I forget, I do want to mention also, a Georgia representative, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, her Twitter was suspended because she kept tweeting false information about the election, about other conspiracies. She's known to support QAnon and those types of conspiracies. So we obviously are still seeing some misinformation being spread. So with all of that going on, the misinformation, threats, things like that, Kelly, what are some of our lawmakers saying on the Hill?
Well, it's interesting. It's really divided. We talked with some members last week, and some said that the Capitol is the safest place in the world right now because of the precautions they've taken and in reaction to the attack on January 6th. I walked through there last week, and there were hundreds, thousands of National Guard troops inside the Capitol. I was just taken aback. I've never seen anything like it. So they feel very safe. But then we talked, that was a Republican we spoke with at that time. And then there's also a Democrat we spoke with who said he's not so sure. He feels safe, but he's worried that there will be another attempt or attack, which is understandable. These guys had to go through that attack on Capitol Hill. They saw it firsthand. So to be concerned about another threat is understandable. And we have those two interviews to play for you right now.
I think this is probably the safest place in the country to be right now.
These violent, far right-wing white supremacists will come back with guns.
So after that, on Thursday, Vice President Mike Pence, still very much engaged, as we saw. He was there at the night of the attack or the afternoon of the attack. He got briefed by FEMA and FBI and everybody on this inauguration security. He says he's trying to do everything he can. He says the president is involved in that to ensure a peaceful transition. As we know, Pence will be there on Wednesday. President Trump will not. He is set to leave Wednesday morning, and he will not be here to attend Biden's inauguration.
Our aim here, the American people can be confident, is that we're going to ensure that we have a safe inauguration.
And we're also seeing, obviously, more states are, expressing their abilities to support and send National Guard troops to the Capitol. I believe we're having over 20,000 troops who are going to be there. And Kelly, I saw your pictures that you put on social last week. It is kind of mind-boggling to see all these National Guardsmen sitting in the Capitol Visitor Center, where you would start your tour of the Capitol. That's where any tourist who comes into D.C. and is looking to see where democracy lives, they start there in the Capitol Visitor Center and then make their way through the hallowed halls of Congress, which are currently inhabited by National Guards troops. I mean, it's things we've never seen. I hate to use this word, but it's unprecedented. But I think it's something that's definitely, we're going to just really have to keep following and seeing because there's still fallout going on from the attacks, of still issuing more arrests, finding out what happened, more task forces being dedicated to, investigate different, because there's talks about different law enforcement officials from across the country participating, as well as, all these other rumors. But don't want to talk more about the rumors. But again, so we're really just going to see another historic week, like you said, and really just keeping an eye out on security that day. I mean, we're seeing a lot of the stereotypical inauguration celebrations not happening. They're even encouraging people not to come out to the Capitol to celebrate. Granted, I don't think they could get to the mall because the mall's going to.
I don't think so. I know. There's no way. I know they were saying that, like you mentioned, to stay home. It's virtual. Don't come to the National Mall. They actually can't. They closed the National Mall, and don't even try. I mean, it's going to be a headache just for us to jump into our office space to go do live shots. I mean, we're being warned to leave a lot of time just to get there, and that's not even exactly going to the Capitol.
Yeah. And especially, God forbid, there's more protests too that may happen. It's going to just be it's going to be a lot that's happening on Wednesday. I'm sure it's going to be a big day, and we'll have more to talk about next week. But we also want to shift gears to talk about something else that's still currently happening that we're kind of forgetting about, because the inauguration is happening this week. And that's the impeachment trial of Donald Trump, the second impeachment trial. We're hearing some local lawmakers speaking out against it. And we're hearing from the other side talking about why they're pushing forward with this at this time. So Kelly, talk to us a little bit about, I believe we heard South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham come out against the impeachment, coming out against impeachment. So Kelly, tell us a little bit more about why he said that and what we're hearing from the other side.
Well, it's really interesting. And we had a call with Lindsey Graham on Friday, a Zoom call with him for South Carolina media. And it's interesting to see because, he was against objecting to the Electoral College count. He said enough is enough. He came out very strongly in condemning the president, saying, he should have come out with this anti-violence speech way sooner. He said that the president's comments last week were good, but they needed to be done earlier. So he criticized him, but then he also jumped on Air Force One for a trip to Texas with the president, saying to us that he wanted to spend some time with the president in the final days of his presidency. He says they're going to continue to be friends. So it's very both sides there. But in terms of impeachment, he didn't agree with what the House did, and he wants Democratic leader, soon to be majority leader because of what happened in Georgia, sending 2 more Democratic senators to the Senate. to encourage Schumer to stop the process, because now the Senate is set to return at noon tomorrow. We are expecting it to move into the impeachment trial in the Senate as soon as that article of impeachment is sent over. And he's telling him to stop the process. He thinks it will divide the country, and that he's encouraging Biden as well not to support this.
I know the conduct of the president has upset people, rightly so, but we're a nation of laws here. We can't just let the pot boil over. And a second impeachment trial in the Senate, I think, is unconstitutional, will do a lot of damage. And I would like it to end for the good of the nation.
There was an act of insurrection perpetrated on the Capitol of the United States, incentivized by the President of the United States. 1 week later, Wednesday to Wednesday, that president was impeached in a bipartisan way by the House of Representatives.
Again, you're hearing from South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham and Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi talking about impeachment there. I find it really interesting because the night of the insurrection, when both chambers of Congress, wow, it's really going to be a long week, can you tell? When both chambers of Congress were in the House chamber, obviously discussing the electoral vote counts and doing that whole process, and Lindsey Graham came out in this huge speech, speaking out against Trump and Trumpism, saying, quote, he was done, he was over it, all of this stuff, and we're still seeing him trying to keep that close relationship he has to the president, obviously very politically motivated for that reason. Obviously, a lot of the Republican base is trying to figure out whether they should still align themselves with the president, who this party has morphed itself into the party of President Trump, or if they should start shifting their alignment back to the establishment republicanism of old, based of the Ronald Reagan years and true conservatism like Mitt Romney and people like that. So that's one thing just all in itself. I mean, something else I think it's interesting, worth discussion. I don't know if you've heard about this, Kelly, but I was hearing from some reports in Washington that Democrats are not only considering impeachment, which obviously is just really awaiting that trial in the Senate, but they're also looking at the 14th Amendment, seeing if they would be able to implement a special section of the 14th Amendment, Section 3, which basically says that anybody who incites an insurrection or a rebellion against any part of the public of the country, whether it's the government, the House, the White House, any part of the government, is ineligible to run for office or hold public office in the future. And that is a lot easier for Democrats to be able to do as compared to impeachment, where impeachment, you need 2/3 of the Senate, so you need 67 senators, and Democrats only have a slim majority, a very, very slim majority. But with invoking the 14th Amendment, that's just a simple majority vote in both chambers of Congress, which Democrats would be able to do. Kelly, did you hear about that at all? Is this news to you?
I heard about this, and I'm trying to figure out because I know that they were saying, let's convict the president, guilty or not guilty, in the trial, and then also make sure that he can't run again. And that's something I wanted to ask Graham on Friday, but I didn't get the chance to. Would he want to stop the president from being able to run again, especially for someone who ran against him the first time around? Is he curious about running again in 2024? Something we didn't get to ask him, but I'm sure we'll talk to him again and ask him. But that is something to look out for, to bar him from running again. And I think it'll be interesting to watch how soon-to-be Senate Minority Leader McConnell will vote, how he feels about this process, because it could impact how the rest of his caucus goes. There have been some reports that he, isn't against the idea of impeachment or convicting, but he isn't for it. We don't know. We don't know how he's going to go. So it's interesting that he hasn't come out fully against it. It speaks volumes that he is maybe weighing this is huge. But he didn't encourage people and his members of the caucus and the Senate to wait until the inauguration is done, focus on safety, and then pick up with the trial. So what I'm hearing is a trial, you won't see it happening maybe till Friday or next week. So any thought of it coming on inauguration day, anything like that, I think there's so much focus on safety right now that we're not really quite looking at the trial.
Yeah. And I think too, one, you bring up an excellent point with Mitch McConnell. He's already signaling he's kind of over Trump, and he hasn't spoken with the president since early December, before Mitch McConnell came out and officially congratulated Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on winning the election. After that, President Trump sort of cut off ties to him. And also too, I mean, something else that's worth mentioning is also the fact that by the end of this week, I believe we will have those two new Democratic senators from Georgia. And so right here in Georgia, they're going through the process of certifying the election results in the 159 counties that are here in the state. So they had until Friday to certify. And then the Secretary of State has until this Friday to certify the election results from the runoff here before they are sworn into office, John Ossoff and Reverend Raphael Warnock, before they're sworn into office. So once that happens, that's when that whole power shift will happen in the Senate, and that's when the impeachment trial will probably begin too. So I think it's just interesting with the timing, because a lot of people were saying, if Mitch McConnell wanted this to die out, he would have just done the impeachment trial while he still had majority in the Senate, so that it wouldn't even make any sort of leeway. And it's interesting to see him holding off now, obviously focusing on safety of impeachment and waiting until he's no longer majority leader of the Senate for this trial to go on. And also, really one quick other tidbit, it's really interesting to see how in the House this vote was bipartisan, more than the first vote. Granted, it wasn't like all of the Republican caucus in the House, but you still had at least 10 Republicans come out and vote for impeachment, which was a lot more than anybody expected. We were expecting maybe 5 or 6, but when you got 10, including some of the Republican leadership in the House, it definitely says a lot.
Absolutely, and I do think it's also important to note the impeachment trial and the inauguration somewhat go hand in hand, because I think if McConnell did come out and potentially try to push this through, or came out with a stronger statement, it could have potentially incited violence somewhere in here, or it could have not incited. It could have caused more protest. It could have People could have gotten upset and come to the you don't know what could have happened. It could have pushed people's buttons, and maybe if he wanted to have impeachment, go forward, get this done. If he didn't, I don't know. I think just saying, let's just wait. I think there's just so many tempers are high and tensions are high right now. He was trying to cool it down a bit. And I think with that message of let's focus on safety, let's get away from the politics of this moment, because I would fear that it would just upset some sort of groups, and we just don't need that right now.
In the words of MLK and his teachings and his legacy, let's practice peace and tranquility and, calm conversations and discussions, as opposed to violence and other types of expressions like that. So on that peaceful, happy note, let's end it here for today. Thank you as always, Kelly. Again, wish you all the best during this historic week here in Washington. Stay safe out there, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
As always, you can see Kelly's stories on our website. Just go to wsav.com/Washington. You can catch up on previous episodes of All Politics Are Local as well. Just go to wsav.com/allpoliticsarelocal. Thank you so much again for watching. I'm John Dowding. We'll see you again next week on All Politics Are Local.